We are currently 8 weeks away from BC Bike Race.
And a lot of you wanted to know how we're training.
We are gonna take you guys through an endurance workout. Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you are a returning subscriber, thanks for being here. You are obviously being more awesome. If you are new here,
I'm Sid.
And I am Mackie, and today we are gonna take you guys through an endurance workout.
A few weeks ago, we put up a post on Patreon and Instagram asking you guys for your feedback in the kind of videos that would be helpful to get you out there racing. And a lot of you wanted to know how we're training for BC Bike Race.
We are currently 8 weeks away from BC Bike Race, so it's beginning to feel very close.
We decided we would do a series of videos where we go through the different components of training for a 7-day stage race. We should try to define what endurance is, because I think it's this word that gets thrown out a lot, and at the core of it, it's really just the ability to maintain an effort for a sustained period of time. And that can look really different depending on your goals. I think training endurance for all mountain bikers is good. That doesn't mean you need to be training the kind of endurance that you need for a 7-day XC stage race, which is what, that's what BC is. I wanted to talk about endurance miles first because those are the base of your training. Base training, base miles, those are phrases that get thrown out a lot. Basically what people are talking about are those longer, low to moderate intensity rides that form the base of your training. And without this kind of base training, you really set yourself up for injury or burnout or getting sick. Our priority over the past 6 months has been to be able to do a slightly higher intensity with less stopping. This winter, our endurance miles looked a lot like 2 to 3.5 hour road rides. So we would go out, we'd stop only if we had an issue or some reason we needed to stop. It would basically try to log those consistent miles. We'll pull up on the screen here a sort of a sample of a week of training from January or December, because even though it's May now and we're taking you guys through a ride today, we want you to have this perspective of this training didn't start now. If anything, we're at the end of our endurance phase. As you can see, this is a sample of our training from December of this year. We use an app called Training Peaks. So when we log into Training Peaks, we see all of these boxes that our coach Mike has put in there of what we should be doing for the week. You can see here that this week, this was early December, we did basically 3 aerobic rides, and we did do 1 workout that had some intensity in it, but the vast majority of that training is endurance miles. The other thing that you can see here is that we did 2 strength workouts, and we did these on days that we were also doing aerobic or endurance miles. What we're training for is to be able to sustain that pace when we're tired. So we would do a strength workout in the morning and then endurance miles in the afternoon. Endurance miles are a good thing to do when you're tired because you don't really have to perform at a high level. You just have to endure.
Endurance miles are not the most flashy, exciting thing to talk about. It would be a lot more entertaining if we were doing FTP tests like everybody else is doing. But the truth is, an FTP test, all it does is tell you what level your endurance miles should be at. So we know what our FTP is. We've done those tests. What we need is our base miles so that we have something to build on. For breakfast this morning, we just did our usual. We had some eggs and potatoes. As you guys know, we are not super picky. We don't have any dietary restrictions. We're pretty happy to eat any kind of food.
Shake first, ask questions later. Today's ride is gonna be about 2 hours. We're currently in town in Moab, so we're gonna leave from the park and ride up to the Slick Rock Loop, and then we'll do an out and back on that trail.
So Mike's instructions for this ride was steady, but not hard, ride together.
We will do an out and back rather than doing the whole loop, because the whole loop would definitely put us more in the 3-hour range. And we basically just trust our coach a lot when it comes to like how long we should be riding. If he puts this ride in as only 2 hours instead of 3 hours, then there's probably a reason for that. We do try to not overachieve too much, because usually if a ride is supposed to be 2 hours, that means that our training load is high enough that we don't need to do a 3-hour ride, and it could possibly be detrimental.
And then right up through the center. You've heard us say that we use power meters for training. We also use heart rate monitors, and the reason for that is that the two together give you additional information that can be really useful. So just heart rate alone, it can be very variable depending on how you're feeling, how tired you are. Power is completely objective. It tells you exactly how much force you are putting out at any given time. And that is a more objective way to measure the work you're doing. By combining the two, you get a neat combo of being able to tell objectively how hard you're working, but then also compare that to your heart rate to get an idea of whether or not you are properly recovered. For example, if your heart rate's really high, given how much power you're putting out, that's generally a sign that like something's a little bit weird. So the two together can be really, really powerful for training and racing. This ride, I'll probably be in the like 100 to 130 beats per minute for heart rate, which is solidly like in that endurance range. For Sid, it'll be more like 130 to 150. She just naturally runs a slightly higher heart rate than me. And riding together, she'll be going slightly harder intensity-wise than I will be.
Our power numbers will obviously vary a lot because this is mountain biking, so you'll be putting up high power going up the hill, low power down. I would say my power by the end of the ride will probably be on average around 150 or 160. So this is way below FTP, but that also includes the descents and the flat bits where you're not pedaling that hard. One of the goals with endurance rides is to not stop. So we've pretty much been going consistently. We had to stop because there was a crowd of dudes on hit bikes, which was pretty funny. But other than that, we haven't stopped. Probably just be pretty consistent for 2 hours.
We decided to do this ride on our hardtails because we are planning to do a couple of cross-country races here, and you guys will be seeing those in some upcoming videos. And we'll probably be racing those on our hardtails, and so spending a little bit more time on those bikes, getting used to them, working on our climbing like we did in last week's sessioning video, all of those are really important. And so, you know, whatever bike you're gonna race, you wanna make sure you spend enough time on it that you feel comfortable on that bike. That's another great way to use endurance rides, is to get used to a different bike, dial in your setup, make sure everything is ready to go before you're gonna go race it.
Obviously, the harder you're going, the harder it is to eat. So we've been practicing eating, which is obviously great. When we do a ride like this, we basically bring the stuff that we'll be eating in a race. And we're working with Scratch Labs this year, so that'll be Scratch Chews and Scratch Bars. We also are using their hydration mix.
Endurance rides are the time that you want to dial in your race nutrition. So for some people, different bars, different chews don't sit well with them, give them stomach cramps, or, you know, just don't make them feel good. So you should definitely experiment during your endurance rides, not during a race. Figure out how often you need to eat, because like different people need different amounts of food. In general, what we would recommend is at about 45 minutes or an hour, you want some calories. So if your drink mix, like Scratch, is pretty much just hydration, you're gonna wanna eat some chews, you're gonna wanna eat part of a bar, something like that. Really for a race that's fairly short, like hour and a half and under, you probably aren't going to need a whole lot of solid food. Like a couple of chews will probably take care of you.
Especially if you go into the race well-fueled and
Yes,
well-hydrated.
exactly.
A lot of people will tell you that they have to eat like every 20 minutes, and a lot of that I think is kind of like in your head, because the reality is like you have enough fuel and hydration for like an hour-long race.
But probably not a 3-hour-long race.
Yeah,
so,
the longer it gets,
you know, then that's where so this ride is going to be a 2-hour ride. So we know that like we're going to need some food, but we probably like we aren't going to need a sandwich or like an entire bar each. Like we're gonna eat some chews, we're gonna eat part of a bar, and that should be plenty for 2 hours, because we know afterwards we're gonna drink a recovery drink and we're gonna eat lunch.
All right, we are done with our ride, but stop, pause, do not leave. If you're serious about getting faster on your bike, it is what we are about to do, and what you need to do at the end of a ride that is probably equally as important as actually logging those miles. The way you get stronger and fitter is not just by working out and basically running your muscles down, it's by building them back up, which is what you do when you recover. So the first thing we do after a workout is we do a recovery drink, or if we're about to eat a meal, sometimes we don't need to do a recovery drink, but the most important thing is that you replenish those glycogen stores and get an adequate amount of protein and carbohydrates into your system so that your body can start repairing your muscles. We also do some recovery breathing exercises, which basically allows our body to like know that we're done working out and it can start recovering. And if you have time to stretch, take a nap, anything you can do to let your muscles recover from the effort you put forth in the workout will really increase the benefits that you get from that workout.